Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone today to a very special masterclass with Gameloft. We'll just start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. We pay our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. And I'll give it over to Manea to introduce his new baby and project.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for the introduction and the welcoming. It's not just my baby, it's a lot of people working for this baby. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this Gameloft Masterclass. First thing first, if people are cold, we have blankets. So you just have to raise your hand, and we have blankets for anyone who wants. We plan to have a bit more sun today, but yeah, we don't. So outside of that, I wanted to welcome you all for this brand new initiative we're running at Gameloft, which for a while now we have been thinking of how can we connect more with Brisbane, with the community, with people. We do a lot of things already, but we wanted to find another way to just share more and discuss more with you all. And one of the ideas that came out really high was to create some sort of event when we can share a bit about stories and stuff with everybody, not just the Gameloft people. So we thought a bit about that. And in Queensland, in general, you have a lot of really great game developers. And in Gameloft Brisbane, in particular, you have a lot of really great game developers. And we want to share their stories today. We want to share their stories, not only because those people are awesome, but maybe it can inspire some of you. Maybe you're going to learn some stuff. Maybe some of the most junior of you will discover a lot of stuff and like that. Maybe some of the most senior of you will just see alternative of stuff that you already know but done differently. So yeah, hopefully everyone will leave with something interesting after today. This is the first one of these master classes. We'll get them quarterly. We'll have different topics. Today it's about how art and tech merge together to create amazing video games. But yeah, we'll get even more topics in the future. And it's not linked only and reserved only for Gameloft people. If anyone have a nice story they want to share also, please reach out to Justin, reach out to us, and we will be happy to have you talking in some of this masterclass. So yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody who worked hard to make that possible also. And let's start right away with a quick introduction trailer about StoryxBridge, a Gameloft masterclass.
We all remember that one game. Not necessarily the first, but the one that stayed. The one that changed everything. It didn't matter if you finished it, or if you were any good at it. What mattered was how it made you feel. Curious, brave, alive. Behind every game like that, there's a story, a team, a dream. That's what StoryxBridge is all about. A Gameloft Masterclass Series, bringing together game makers and creative minds to learn, to share, to inspire. So tell me, do you remember how that game made you feel? Don't forget, the games we make tomorrow could be the ones they remember forever.
Voilà, so this is StoryxBridge, the masterclass, and the very first one that will inaugurate this masterclass will be Tyson. Welcome, Tyson.
Cool. All working, good, can move through. Yeah, awesome. All right, so this masterclass, how art and tech collaborate in game development. I'm the pre-show before the main event, and then we've got a talk from Sean and then a ton of really cool panelists that are going to be taking you through basically exactly how tech and art work together. So, welcome to Gameloft Brisbane's first ever StoryxBridge Masterclass. I have the great privilege of being the first person to do one. So whether there's any more after this, will I single-handedly make sure it never happens again? Let's find out. As you can see here, I've got my notes. I've got the memory of a goldfish, and I can talk about this stuff for like 20 years, so this is to help keep me on track. My talk is called Speed of Light. Speed running UE5 lighting in 15 minutes. This is a rapid tour, practical look at a bunch of different lighting principles that you can use across mobile, console, and cinematics. Now, It is completely unreasonable for me to try and impart 13 years of knowledge, $100,000 worth of student debt, and everything else I've learned over that time in 15 minutes. It's just not going to happen. So instead, we're going to focus on some really quick but high-impact snippets that you can take with you today to make solid improvements to your lighting within your project when you leave today. That means instead of a deep dive literally into the engine, we're going to be loading your brain with as many important topics as I possibly can within the time frame. So that you can go off and do things better. And the beauty of this talk, hopefully, is that we're talking about lighting principles in Unreal, but they are lighting principles. So it's not specific to Unreal, that's just the focus of this talk. And as a result, hopefully you'll be able to go forwards afterwards and start making lighting better. Basically, beauty optimized. Let's begin. Whoop. Cool, so who am I? Why should you listen to me? Some would argue you shouldn't. As you can tell by the quality of my name tag, I'm an artist. You look at the shading detail on that, that's crazy. Bye. All right, cool. So I've been in this career for about 13 years. Some of the key IPs I've worked on is Fortnite. I've worked on Battle Kitty, which was one of the first full-feature TV shows to be rendered directly out of Unreal. I worked on Multiverses, SpongeBob SquarePants was really, really cool, and a bunch of other things. I'm a senior lighting artist here at Gameloft. I founded my own indie studio, and I'm soon to be a published author. That's not meant to be a flex, a little bit of a flex, but it's mainly that I've taken a bunch of examples from that book that I'm working on to use here, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Alrighty, so to start us off, I want to play a video. This is a sizzle reel of some of my previous work. And it's basically just to get us excited, get us pumped up, so on and so forth. And unfortunately, I don't have anything Gameloft related to show yet, but in time. I hope you enjoy. Woo, sick. All right. Whoever made that must be a really cool guy. So let's dive into it. Why lighting matters. Lighting drives emotion, but it is also raw design, and lighting is often the first impression. Players will feel a level before they even understand it. A lot of people think of lighting as polish, and yeah, on some level that is true, but it is also a design decision that's made early and iterated on constantly. With that said though, lighting is often the last thing to touch a scene, and it holds therefore the incredibly monstrous responsibility of making sure that you don't ruin other people's work and that the rendered pixels look correct. Bad lighting can absolutely undermine really good assets, and then likewise, good lighting can absolutely take what on the surface might seem like a dull scene and turn it into an atmospheric masterpiece. Even mobile games benefit hugely from smart lighting. You don't need expensive rendering, you just need to understand contrast, tone, and clarity. Cool. So, as you can see in this image and the ones that I had on the previous slide, I've lit this scene basically with a focus on pulling your eye towards the centre of the screen. I don't know how clearly that's coming through, but there's like God rays and stuff, you know what I mean. So all of that is there to make sure that it's obvious where you're trying to get to, whether you enter the room from above or below. It's not just about beauty, it's about visual clarity. Cool. So, some quick wins with Lumen. Lumen is UE5's secret sauce. It gives you beautiful real-time bounce lighting and reflections with very little setup. And basically, you don't need to be a lighting specialist to get incredible lighting out of Unreal. That's why so many people use it. The combo of a directional light and a skylight can get you surprisingly far, even if you don't have extra fill lights. And you don't always need to go Lumen GI. Sometimes a well-placed mesh card or emissive material can do 80% of the job. Likewise, emissive materials aren't just for sci-fi glows. You can use them subtly in ceilings, signage, and even fake bounce cards, especially indoors. And remember, Lumen is smart and it is incredibly powerful, but it is not magic. Feeding it the right shapes and materials will be essential to getting the best results. I highly recommend looking into the Lumen section of your Levels post-process for really simple ways on how to optimize your lighting within Unreal. So here, we have a very simple scene. It's identical, with the one exception to the rule being that it's using Lumen GI. And it's subtle, but you can see a few things like improved GI bouncing, and specifically the way that light is reflecting within the reflections as well. So, next, colour and temperature. What is it? Well, colour temperature is a way that we describe light appearance provided by a light bulb. It is measured in degrees of Kelvin, and it ranges roughly from like 1,000 to 10,000, but we can push that further if we need to, with lower values representing warmer, yellowish light, and higher values representing cooler, blue light. This is important because light colour is how we interpret a scene, even before we can process what we're seeing. Changing nothing but the light temperature can turn a room from welcoming to terrifying. As you can see in this image that I've done down the bottom here, this is the exact same scene. I've turned off a couple of lights, I've changed the light colour, and I've upped the fog. That was 5 minutes of work to dramatically change the way that the scene looked. And you don't always need to worry about whether it looks real. It's about what feels right that ultimately is what's important. Even subtle shifts, like using a 5,000 key light or a 7,000 fill, can add depth without the viewer even noticing why. And again, like I said before, do not forget your post-process volume. You can do subtle global shifts and push warmth and coolness without needing to relight an entire scene, just like I've done up the top here. Cool. Contrast and visual hierarchy. How do we direct the eye? Lighting is composition. You're telling the player where to look, what to feel, and what to ignore. A common mistake is overlighting everything evenly, which we want to avoid as it kills depth, mood, etc. In production, I will often do a rough pass of my lighting, and then I will literally delete half of those lights just to see how it's looking, right? Less really is more. Your lighting should guide the player's eyes exactly where you want them to land, even during gameplay. Now, Naughty Dog are masters of visual hierarchy. I literally thought of this scene from Uncharted when I was making this slide, which is why I've put it up there. But to be fair, literally anything that they've done shows this really well, even their old school Crash Bandicoot games. So take an excuse to go do some research and development and go play those games, because I highly recommend it. In a sense, art is contrast. It creates clarity. But in games, that contrast clarity creates direction. Cool. Shadow strategies. It's cliche, I know, but there truly is no light without dark. Shadows are awesome. They can make or break your scene, and they are absolutely critical for depth and realism. But shadows are often where performance goes to die. So what do? Well, you don't just crank up your cascade shadows. Instead, focus shadow quality where the camera and the player lives. Contact shadows are great for things like props and tables, feet on the ground, and detail-rich environments. And fake shadows can absolutely be a secret weapon. Something as simple as a plane that is slightly blurred can indicate a shadow without actually putting something there. And shadow decisions should change depending on what platform you're doing. What you do on a high-end PC is very different from mobile, etc., and sometimes a middle ground needs to be met. Thankfully, Unreal has some really great functionality out of the box that allows you to change those settings on a per system level. All right, post-processing. This is my personal favourite. This is how you make a scene pop. Post-processing is when your lighting really starts to come together. It's like grading for a film for the final shot. The top image, which I have there, again, you're not going to be able to see this because of the screen, but that's fine, shows a very quick post pass that I did to make it pop, especially in the dark of the trees. So you've got like the rim lighting there and all that sort of stuff. It's subtle, but it makes a massive difference to the final image. Post-processing is awesome, but when misunderstood, it can be damaging to the look of your scenes. For example, the tone mapper. It's on by default in Unreal, and it's amazing for realism, but can absolutely destroy your colours in stylised projects. Speak to me after this if you'd like a bit more of an in-depth breakdown of this incredibly nuanced topic. I'd be happy to talk about it. But in general, don't be afraid to use post-processing to remove post-processing as well to add it. I know that's a weird idea, but it does work. The act of colour grading isn't just about style, it's about unifying all lights, materials and assets under a singular mood and idea. These small touches like bloom and vignette can make your scene feel finished without actually adding any lights. And post-process is where you can save a lot of time and you can change the whole look of a level without relighting anything in many cases. But with that said, don't overdo your post-process effects. Think of them more like a seasoning rather than the whole meal. All right. So, fake it like a pro. Here we have the art of making something feel right, even if it's a bit funky in its execution. Sometimes realism isn't the goal, believability is. I use small, invisible, non-shadow casting point lights everywhere, constantly. The reason I do this is because they do what 𝘠𝘠𝘵𝘐 should do, but faster and cheaper. Emissive materials look cool, and they don't just have to be visual. They can contribute to 𝘠𝘠𝘵 if they're bright enough, and a great way to more cheaply light a scene. And if the audience doesn't know it's fake and it looks great, then that's real enough for me. Anyone hazard a guess at what the two key lighting tricks are in this bottom shot that I'm using here? One of them might be obvious, but the other one is a bit harder to tell. Come chat to me after this if you have any ideas. But your key clue is that was the car that we were using within that shot for that trailer. So I'd be curious to know if anyone can figure it out. Cool, moving on. Lighting debug views. Okay, so I'm calling myself out a little bit here. That first scene that I was showing you before, it's horribly unoptimized. I was in a rush, I had to get it done. But it proves my point well, and it's really good for showing off a couple of the different systems that you can use for troubleshooting your lights and how things are going to work. Debug views are kind of like an X-ray vision, and they show what's really happening behind the beauty. The lighting only view up above is my go-to usually, because when I'm trying to avoid things like effects and all this other sort of stuff that could be muddying the water, that's how I make sure whether my directional or my fall-off or anything is what's causing those issues. And then light complexity, which is down the bottom there, is essential for optimizing too many overlapping dynamic lights. All that white that you see there is really, really bad, so definitely need to improve that. So, the key takeaways. In short, basically, I want you to all think of lighting intelligently, excuse me, but also effectively. And whether you're lighting for a cinematic, a mobile game, or a high-end PC, take these away because the same truths apply. Number one, cheat, fake, and trick the eye. It's what every film, game, and trailer does. The key trick for us in games is doing it in real time. Lumen is great and it's very powerful at the base, but like any system, it works best when you guide it. Don't just rely on the defaults. And three, most importantly in my opinion, lighting is about emotion first, then performance, then polish. It all matters, but you cannot and should not optimize lights in a scene before they even exist. All right, bonus round. It's called a speed run, so let's speed run. It takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm going to start reading from this very directly because that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it quick enough. It takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for light to get from the sun to earth. I'm going to attempt to give you 30 of my best lighting tips in that time. Now, important note for some of you that might be looking a bit confused right now. Every single thing that I've mentioned in this talk and that we'll continue to mention for the rest of this presentation are literally keywords that you can use for search terms in Unreal and Google to learn more later, right? So when I'm talking about temperature of a light, it's literally called temperature within those details. So if there's anything you want to take away from today, just look up the word and you should be able to find what you're looking for. So, to the people taking notes, hang on to your butts. Here comes 30 lighting tips at light speed in hopefully now less than 8 minutes. Round 1, never trust the editor preview. Lighting can shift between the editor and play mode. Always test in play on editor or a packaged build. Test in context. Lighting and cinematics are reactive. Always test with gameplay flow, not just in still shots. Plan your lighting variants early. Planning for lighting flexibility early will save you hours later. Use lighting channels strategically. Lighting channels are super powerful, great for hero lighting and characters or separating cinematic and world lights. Create a lighting sandbox. A sandbox lighting level is something that I use on every project. It lets you experiment safely without breaking the main scene. Lighting is design. It's not just polish. When done right with intent, it's player guidance, emotional storytelling, and spatial clarity. You can boost your gameplay by using lights to improve the way that players navigate through the space without having to rely on UI. Love to the UI team though, they're awesome. Aim for visual clarity. Proper lighting reduces noise and helps gameplay readability, especially in fast-paced scenes. And lighting equals science. Unreal supports real-world lighting values. You can literally see how science can be used in this next slide. So, key units of measurement for lighting. First we have candelas, all right? I recommend Googling this stuff. Represents the luminosity and intensity in a direction. Has that switched over? Yes. All right, cool. 1 candela roughly represents the single value of a candle. It's used in Unreal for spotlights and for point lights. Next is lumen, which represents the total amount of visible light that's being emitted from a source. Unreal doesn't expose this unit always directly, but it's conceptually tied to intensity, and obviously it's the name Epic used when naming their lumen system, which is cute. And then finally, you've got lux, which is the illuminance on the surface, and we generally use that for measuring the intensity of the sun. Full sunlight, which absolutely isn't here today, is usually 110,000 lux. I'd say we're sitting at about 40k lux today. And within that room over there, you'd see about 300 lux. Exposure is simulated camera sensitivity and adjusts how bright or dark a scene appears. Lower values equal brighter image, higher equals darker. And you can use manual exposure to post-process and lock lighting appearances. Intensity itself represents the general brightness settings of lights in Unreal. It can represent candelas or lux depending on the light type, but watch out for whether you're using use inverse squared fall-off if it's enabled, as that can adjust the value that as it's being interpreted. And speaking of inverse squared fall-off, this represents realistic light decay. It's enabled by default on point lights and spotlights, and we usually disable them for stylized or consistent lighting. So in this example here, this was Talk 2, and the mandate for that was we want to create hyper-realistic looking game. Okay, sweet. We'll use hyper-realistic values to achieve exactly that. I literally just Googled what's the value of the sun and just plugged in Unreal. Happy days. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Round 3, Nanite plus Lumen equal the dream team. They are built to work together, so use them together. Use a skylight for easy ambient fill. Skylight leaking, it's called that in your post-process, lets you control how much skylight leaks into the darker areas of your world. It's great for subtle fill and is one of the least talked about lighting hot tips that I know of, especially in the Unreal community. Be sure to set your exposure manually to avoid unexpected surprises. If you don't know how to use it, that's fine. If you know how to use it, awesome. Otherwise, remove it. Opposites to pop. A warm key light plus a cool fill is an easy win in many situations. Next are some actual colour values you can use for temperature. 6,000 for neutral daylight, 4,000 for warm indoors, 3,000 for sunlight or sunset or firelight, and 8,000 for overcast or cold mood. Don't just white light everything. Even subtle shifts in hue can dramatically change the tone, and light colours to signal gameplay. We all know that the red barrel explodes, yes? Well, it's the same for evil lighting, red, Star Wars, etc., right? In slides 21 and 22, how do I go back? There we go. Basically, a mate of mine sent me a character. He's like, yo, can you go light this please, man? I'm like, yep, absolutely. He wanted it to pop off the screen. I think I've done a pretty good job of that. And it helps do that. And this is showing that example of using clarity and rim lighting under different colour tones in order to achieve that effect. Cool. And then finally, round 4, unify your colour palettes by using tint and saturation. Tune your tone mapper to preserve highlight details and crush blacks for contrast. Test LUTs, which stand for lookup tables, within the post-process for a film-like finish. Subtle lens effects can give you easy cinematic polish. Sequencer specific looks by blending with triggers and blueprints to change grading dynamically. Use invisible point lights for cheap, easy wins. Flat planes as bounce cards can literally give you fake lighting like they do in movies. Emissive materials can do real GI if it's bright enough. You can cheat for visuals, but not for physics. Your goal is believability, not simulation. So understand what your values are for the given project. And then finally, copy film lighting techniques. Fake softboxes, rim lights, and backlights with simple point lights are an easy way for your games to go to another level. In this example here, this was for TD2. I was told to go make a photo studio. So I literally built a photo studio using real-world lighting and bounce boxes and all that sort of stuff, and it resulted in a really nice and beautiful, realistic lighting studio. Holy crap, my voice. All right. And that's how you speed run Unreal Lighting in definitely more than 15 minutes. All right. Now, obviously wrestling with my notes and the wind and stuff wasn't my fault, you know, God hates me, it's fine. We didn't get the sub 15, but I did do that in less than 8 minutes and 20 seconds, those 30 tips. So we have beaten the literal source of life and power in our solar system, which is a pretty cool way to start off the first ever masterclass, if you ask me. In the interest of time, I'm going to save all questions until after these talks, but feel free to come speak to me afterwards. I'll be here afterwards networking. I'm happy to talk about anything. I know I've just rambled for 20 minutes. If anything's gone over your head, please feel free to ask. I promise I'm kind, even though I don't look like that. And then next up, we have the very talented and handsome, which I'm sure will be relevant for his talk, 𝘞𝘩𝘵𝘭𝘆. This man's technical problem-solving mind makes mine look like that of a chimpanzee, so we're in for a good one.
Oh, thanks. Can I have the thing? How do we work this? How do we work this? All right. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about vegetation, but a little bit about me. My name's 𝘞𝘩𝘵𝘭𝘆. I am a technical artist. I've been working in games for about 15 years now, but I've also done stuff in the film industry and TV commercials and whatnot. Just a quick aside, how many people here want to be technical artists or even know what that is? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many folks here have no idea what a technical artist is? All right, okay. Well, that's great to know. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to go over how we create a tree in a forest, right? And try and get down to the granular level. What we're going to cover is like foraging. So what are we going to build, right? That's quite the first question. The second one, once we understand what the task is, do some research and development. There's a lot of stuff that goes into what are we going to build, how are we going to build it, and then create a pipeline for that. And then once we create the pipeline, how do we roll that out to the artists? How do they understand how it works? Assembly, that's the shortest slide. And then find out how we actually take that piece of vegetation and integrate that into the world. And then I have some resources. So I don't think this will go quite as long as Tyson's, but we'll see how we go. All right, so for the first one, foraging. If we have a look on the left-hand side there, that's kind of the outcome, what we're after. And vegetation is essentially for all intents and purposes, the characters of an environment, right? They take up so much of the screen, right? But when we are tasked to make a forest, we need to ask, how big is it, right? How dense is it? Because it can cover kilometers, but you know, how dense is the forest? Does it need to animate? If so, what is this animation complexity? Are the leaves waving in the wind, or do we want the actual tree to bend and sway? Does it, direction of the wind? Is the vegetation destructible? That's another thing, right? Like, how do we solve that? What is the art style, right? We can all say it needs to be realistic. Okay, that's one problem, even without animation. Stylized, easier problem. What are the target platforms, right? We want this giant forest that's super dense, but we want it to run on a mobile phone. How do we go about doing that? So we have a meeting with all of the folks, and it needs to be an open world game. Well, how dense is it? Okay, the thicker the better. All right, thank you. Does it animate? In a storm, we want it to feel electric, so we want the trees to bend and move and sway. Is it destructible? Nah, it's all good. Okay, can remove that one. And what is the art style? We want it to be stylized because maybe we want to run it on a Switch or a mobile phone, right? So the first thing we want to do is, once we define that, we do some R&D. Concepting, so we work with the concept artists. The environment artist might model some trees, like what are the sizes, how big are the leaves. So you can see one of our environment artists here, Chris, did a test of this tree. So he built it in TreeIt, but you can use whatever DCC you want to use, right? We try and make it program agnostic, except sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. Micah! Yay! Teamwork. All right, so this maple tree, again, we're talking about texture memory, polygon count, all of this stuff. So this maple tree, we got it down to 2 textures, all right, because we want to run it on a low-end device. How can we do as big a forest as possible, so you have to worry about polygon count and textures and all those good stuff. So for the bark, we used a 2K by 512, right? We tile that. And then for the leaves, we used just a 2K texture. Because again, if we make branches or leaf things that are like a meter long, we use a texel density of about 512 pixels per meter, so that a 2K texture could cover 8 meters, right? So we could have the consistency throughout the entire game. And then, why is that down there? Okay, all right, we'll just keep going. So if you have a look on that wasn't updated, on the right, you can see these are 3 variants or 3 sizes of the same species, right, of tree. And the reason why we did that, so we have a large, medium, and small. And the reason why we do that is because we want to not scale the tree so that we have inconsistency within the foliage leaves, right? So just to clarify, Chris did some material work in order to get to this, close to this final look. So then what we did with tech art is we've defined this is what the tree looks like. Now we need to get it to animate, and how do we work through that? So we need to define polygon budgets for like the different sizes of the trees. We need to define texture sizes. We need to define the texel density, as I mentioned, 512 pixels per meter. And the reason why we want to do that is you don't want to have a prop or a building or something that looks really nice from a texture resolution point of view right next to a tree or something where that object has been scaled and you have like this mismatch and it just doesn't look very polished. And then we need to know how many generations of animation. So you've got like your root generation and then your branches and then your leaves and all that kind of stuff, which we'll go through in a minute. And in order to animate this tree over here or this variation, we use these things called, we store the position of those pieces in a texture, and we store the direction that they're pointing in another texture. And this is where I'll expand in a second. So again, what I was saying previously, on the left-hand side here is the tree, the 3 different variants of the tree. And on the right-hand side here, you can see that okay, that's scaled a bit. On the right-hand side there, you can see it's the same tree that's been scaled from a large, it's the middle tree. It's been scaled large and small, and it just looks a little bit off because you can see like the size of the leaves are absolutely ginormous. So the same with, buddy, come on. Thanks. So the same with texel density. You also want to get like the size of object consistent throughout your whole game, right? And these are the subtle things which make things feel believable or not. Because again, if your tree could be destructible and it falls on the ground and you haven't done this, you might have like a 5-meter leaf at your feet, right? So the pipeline. To animate vegetation with a material, we must provide hierarchical information for where each branch and leaf is in space. I'm going to move over here so I can see this. All right, so I've done a very, very brief, I hope you can see this, a very brief explanation of a tree. So we have the trunk, a branch, and the blue one is the leaf, right? So we say the trunk is the root, or generation 0, and your branch is generation 1, and then your leaf is generation 2. And as they animate, you can inherit the animation from the trunk. So if the trunk bends, then the branch takes that animation and bends, and the leaf and bends. You've got this hierarchical system. So we then break the tree up into pieces, and find the pivot position and direction of each piece. So you can see here that this is the wireframe, and down here is the pivot position of the root of the trunk, pivot position of the branch, and the pivot position of the leaf. And you can see their directions. And at the top here, I mean, this is garbled for you right now, but this is the information of like where they are. So the top here is the positions, and this is like the direction of those, right? So then we take the different pieces. We've got the trunk, the branch, and the leaf, and we create a second UV channel. And in that, we divide it up against how many pieces. So in this instance, we have, 1 divided by 6, so we can get the center. And we collapse all of those UVs or points onto one another to place them, distribute them evenly along the UV space, right? So that allows us to export textures of the position and direction, right? So you can see here, we're talking about the position of the root, Gen 1, the direction, and then we have our direction. Everyone following, nodding, yes, no, okay, that's great. It's all about concepts. Once you get this, go onto the internet, you can figure it out. So then we work on assembly. We bring in all the assets. So this is going to be a very quick, like 1 slide of assembly, because a lot of the stuff you can get on the internet. There's functions and materials, but it's all of the other stuff which is quite abstract. So we bring in all these pieces, we plug them all in, and based off of that, we use sine waves to oscillate each piece instead of noise. What, is that, Anna, is that working? No, it's probably going to turn on at the end. Let's see. Then we update the animation. Do I need to, is there a mouse? Play. Is it, I don't know how to use a Mac. So by updating this, we can make a tree, it's incredibly violent. Which direction do we want the wind to flow, and how do we go about doing that? And that's really great because you can create these templates, right? So you set it up like this is the maximum character, and then you put that into the world and in the wind system, and then you can adjust the strength of the wind, and it just acts appropriately, right? So you can make it stiff and rigid, flowy, rigid with the trunk, but the leaves are loose, like a bamboo or bendy. The sky's the limit. That is a reference to Tyson's talk. All right, so occlusion. So this is where we can integrate the vegetation into the environment, right? So we can cheaply take kind of like Amee occlusion map of the environment, and then just lay that over. And this is kind of like debug. You don't see this. This is behind the scenes. And then, is this another video? Oh, there you go. This is fine. And then we can cheaply fake how wind is occluded. Oh, okay, no, the next one. We can control the wind fall off by adjusting the texture's contrast. So you see here, we're just adjusting it so where it's black, that vegetation won't get any wind, or when it's white, it will, and in between. So you can see here, if we have a look, when I adjust that texture, when it goes black, there's no wind. When it goes white, there isn't anywhere in between. So what's really, oh my goodness, we updated it this morning. This is the debug view. There you go. Okay, so here you can see where we're adjusting the occlusion. If I press the button, oh, is it really going over all of this again? Okay. All right. So here you can see we're adjusting the texture, and the forest in here is kind of blowing less. And then as we get out into the open, it's blowing more. Now, this isn't true occlusion. It's not like you put the wind over here behind the mountain. But in games, we're just kind of faking all of this. And this can work on a mobile. So you want, oh my goodness, have you seen the tech in that game? I go into the thing and the forest doesn't blow. And oh my God, it's amazing. It's like, yes, it is amazing. Because that's all we do. Like tech artists, it's We do the technical things that the artist can't do, and we do the artistic things that the programmers can't do. So we're kind of the ninjas, should I say? And that's that's how we build a forest, you know, in game development. So if you have a look, that is also off the screen. Hang on. How do we move it? All right, thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to working with you all at some point in the future, and I hope you got something great out of this. And feel free to ask me any questions that you need.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to our first ever masterclass workshop panel. I am Cass. I am the game community manager here. I work in the marketing team. This is what I do. I just talk. So, I've been at Gameloft for about 3 years now. I've been in the industry about 5, but today I'm here to bridge the gap, or at least throw a rope, across it between art and tech with the help of our excellent panelists. Today we've got Amee, who's our concept artist, Chris, one of our 3D artists, Nolan, our lead environment artist, and Kiera, one of our senior gameplay programmers. Sean and Tyson, you're going to be... Okay, yep. Them. Sean and Tyson, you're going to be our bonus DLC today if we want any extra feedback. So, but of course, I only know them at a high level. So I'll let our panelists battle it out, quick fire around the introductions, but then also as an icebreaker, let us know what game inspired you to get into games. And go. Yes. I'm going to try and just hand you guys this microphone and see if it works any better. All right?
All right. My background was originally in film and photography, but I found my calling inside of 3D art and games. So I've been here at Gameloft for just over 3 years now. And I'd say the games that inspired me the most would definitely be the older Valve titles. So like Portal and TF2, as well as Borderlands series like that. It's just a big inspiration for myself. So, yeah.
So I've been at Gameloft for about a bit over a year now, but been in the games industry probably 20 years now. And games that got me in were, God, really, really old DOS games. Like Doom was new. It was relatively late. So like anyone who's like remembers like Cosmos Cosmic Adventure and other badly named titles, yeah, I was there for that. It was a good time, but going back and playing it now is rough as hell.
Hello. So I started at Gameloft as an intern. Now I'm artist 3, which is basically like mid concept artist. Where have I? So I've worked here. I've worked at Summerfall Games, and my favorite game that got me into games was BioShock Infinite. So when I got the art book for that, I was like, you can do art for games and you can make that a career. So that inspired me. And it was by a female artist as well, which was awesome.
Yeah, we're going to play Pass the Parcel with the microphone today, so get friendly. All right, so that was introductions. So for the panel, to help us stay on theme and to avoid accidentally spilling any NDA secrets, we're going to make a completely hypothetical game world to keep us on topic. No one's prototyping anything live. It's a fun way just to keep us grounded. Amee, you're concepting it. Nolan, you're blocking it out. Chris, you're asset building. Kiera, you're working on audio. Bonus, Sean is doing vegetation. Tyson, doing lighting if we want to pipe in. And me, I'm marketing. I come in with, we like a photo mode for content. So let's go through this life of making a game world and see where art and tech either collide or collaborate. All right, first topic, understanding each other's worlds. At a high level, tell us about your role and how you perceive the other side of the pipeline. What do you admire or find challenging? Nolan, your turn.
Thank you. I kind of see, so my primary role is level building, world building, that kind of thing. So I kind of consider my role creating a palette for a lot of the other disciplines in the game development. So essentially highlighting their design, so making space for their design to shine and stuff like that, and making sure that we have, narrative, makes sense, environment to storytelling, ensure the space is there for like design to work, combat to work, also making it visually, stunning so that it not only works but it looks great, and yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm keeping it short and sweet.
A day for me can vary quite a bit, so I'll make anything that goes in an environment. It could be as large as a building or a tree, or it could be as small as like some table and chairs and rubble bits so that the world feels lived in. And then sometimes it's creating a cohesive and appealing visual style in collaboration with our art directors and leads that suits the needs of the project, the IP, the target audience, and the platform that it's going on. And I'd probably say what inspires me the most from the other tech artists is probably their problem-solving ability is just next level. It definitely is just super impressive what they're up to.
So I always get introduced as audio. I'm actually a generalist, but basically I just do whatever is like no one else is working on, and as a result, I end up in audio a lot. So like a good example is that in this case is audio, where my job I spend a lot of time just talking to other people in the team and finding out, okay, what are you working on? Where do we need to like fit things in here? Like, then I'll go and talk to the audio designers, and we'll actually just back and forth figure out how we're going to make that sound right. And from there, we then try and get it in as quickly as possible so that the people working on audio can actually do their part of the process. So it's like programming, and especially generalist programming, you're kind of the glue between various bits, and getting things up and running is like the key to making sure everyone can actually work on their piece. So yeah, it's sometimes hectic, but that's kind of where we sit.
So for concept, you'll be surprised how much research we have to do and ref gathering we would have to do. So for a start of a project, if we're doing environment, we would talk to our creative director or our lead and like, what do we want to go for? What's the style? Research some games. Okay, maybe we can do something like this. Concept a bunch of things, and then we'll go into environment and okay, what does the tree look like? What does this house look like? Try to get something that's like build a visual diary that we can follow off, and then also talk to programmers and 3D artists and be like, can we do this? What's the scope? So that's usually.
Thank you. Now, I will say, Sean and Tyson, if you feel like you have any input to any of the questions I say, please raise your hand and I will call you over. Or just come over and interrupt me. It's fine. I'm used to it. All right. So next question. What makes collaboration across disciplines work? Tools, etc. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Kiera, let's go.
I mean, collaboration is basically the entire thing. Like, you need absolutely everybody here to make a game. Like, you do see stories about people solo deving. Very rarely do they not have like a music composer or somebody filling other skill sets, and they have to work directly with those people. But as you want to make more and more stuff, you've got to work with a team. So like your stuff needs to hand over to somebody else. So concept drives what the modelers and animators are going to be doing. So that essentially has to flow onto them. Game design relies on those things. So there's a process handing off things between people and back and forth.
Can I just add to it? It's like and it's also the best way to make a good game is through collaboration. Like, it's not only a necessity, but it also getting other people's opinions, getting them to work with you, and finding out what as an artist, I have a real desire to make the world look amazing, but as a designer, they want to make the world fun to play. And so sometimes during collaboration, they create ideas for me to make the world more beautiful, and vice versa. It's a collaborative process, and it's the best way to make a game better. So.
Anyone else want to weigh in, or you're all good? You're good. We'll go to the next one then. Oh. I guess. All right, it's you. Don't talk too long. Sorry.
All right, another 15 minutes. Let's go. Just following on with what's being said there from Nolan and Kiera. A lot of it is, it's easy to talk about like tools and stuff like that, which are absolutely essential to collaboration. But more than anything else, it's the ability to communicate, right? So through the entire pipeline, it does not matter like how many people you're working with. It's when the communication falls apart that everything starts to fall apart, right? The amount of times I've broken the build and submitted something up and it hasn't been quite working right, but it's been with the intention of something happening, usually all worries go away when that communication is indicated, like, oh, this is what we're doing, this is the process, etc. And in the same way Nolan's talking about, like, oh, design and art need to, collaborate, find that middle ground. That's ultimately what it comes down to, right? So like team building, etc. I assume there's a couple of students here. Technical skills are super important, but if you want to know the kind of soft skills that are going to get you hired, it's the ability to collaborate and be like a team player, you know what I mean? The ability to talk and communicate is going to be way more important than any sort of technical skills that you might necessarily have.
I've just got an idea from that. So when you collaborate as well, you kind of learn new tools to help people out. So like I've learnt Blender, learning Substance Painter just to help make things easier in the pipeline as well. So collaborating, you learn a lot.
I'll add on to that. It's the same from 3D to tech. It's like being mindful of performance. You're not just going to be like, I made this shader, and it's like, oh God, why is this so expensive? It's having a bit of background knowledge on the surrounding fields that you know it's going to interact with so you can make better informed decisions.
And then I come in with unsolicited advice from social media. All right, so next question. We're going to go into the topic of when art and tech collide. So when the clash points, but we're going to be nice. We're not going to have a meeting with HR after this. I can't afford another one. All right, so have you ever had that classic moment where art wants something, tech says no, and vice versa? How do you communicate through this? How do you work through it? You want to go? Yeah. Nolan, let's go.
So there's this guy, Sean, and he creates a lot of problems. But, it's something that I don't know if everybody noticed or was aware of when Sean was doing his talk. It was all in shader. Those trees were all animated in shader. It's a vertex offset animation. And that, as an artist, as an environment artist, I want a lot of trees. And so he's come up with that solution because it's super efficient. We don't need to have like a lot of bones and all this other stuff. We have like a few textures that drive the entire system. And so, and I think that the tech restrictions can add to creativity sometimes. Finding ways, unique methods to solve a problem creates its own aesthetic sometimes, but also it challenges you. So because then I probably have something to say.
Yeah, my story also starts with Sean. No, it's usually never a straight up like, no, we can't do this. But sometimes there's just technical parameters that will get in the way of your creativity, and it's important to remember that you're all on the same side. You're wanting to create something that is visually beautiful and it's engaging. So keeping that in mind, while also just knowing that there's going to be a compromise somewhere. With everything, there's always compromise. So, yeah.
So, yeah, technical details. Look, there's this one thing that I'm sure that a lot of you already know. Like, games really don't want to be made. Like, I'm stealing this quote from someone online. I can't remember who it was. But basically, they fight being brought into existence, and you need to mold every single piece of it, like, get it to work, then repeat that process because that doesn't fit with something else, and over this iterative process going back and forth until it actually all works together. And that jumps between roles and disciplines. And that, like, for example, once again, just roping Sean's thing in. Okay, cool, you want to have a forest that moves. How the hell are we going to do audio for that? That is not a simple problem. And so, like, we then need to go and make an audio system that can handle large numbers of trees in the distance, because that's the sort of thing you actually can hear. It's not just like, oh, some nice ambience up close. And it needs to change. Like if you have a storm, that's a feature we're apparently supporting in this game. Like Sean's system needs to support a storm, the audio system needs to support a storm too. So like this flows on from there, and then that affects everybody else. So it goes into lighting, and that thing needs to look good, and those trees need to look good lighting-wise in a storm. So shaders and lighting, and everyone gets involved. Like nothing affects, like nobody is unaffected by something on the team.
So when I concept, I usually concept something massive. I try to push the boundaries, go big and creative, just in case things need to be toned back down. But usually I find the tech team and 3D team nail it. Like they usually can do it and create something awesome. If not, we collaborate and think, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What do we want this to look like? And we think of a better outcome. But yeah, just go for it.
I just want to add one. And naming conventions are important, despite their...
I guess. All right, Sean, let's go.
Here's quick bonus content. You mentioned how they potentially collide, or if there's any fights or anything like that, and that's really not what it comes down to. It's when you think about it, you have 100 points per frame that the computer has to calculate, and if you want to reference Sean's talk, a giant forest, that might take 60 points, or what, however many features you want to tack onto that, it uses more points. So now you have only 40 points for all of the other things. So you have to just balance it. And it's just about having the conversations about how do we balance it, and what can we get away with, rather than, I want this, no, you can't have that. It's just all a conversation about what are we trying to achieve here.
That's great. That leads into my next question. How do you balance it without blocking creativity? Who wants to go? Yep. You're great. I like you.
Often this comes down to a thing of, okay, so what else are we trying to do at the same time? So those things of points, that's really just like, you might have a certain amount of stuff being rendered in this scene, CPU usage, how much gameplay and physics stuff is going on. All of these things are going to affect what you have to work with in each particular problem. And this changes how you solve your problem. So like the classic example that I like to bring up when it comes to, okay, how do we handle resource differences and things like that, is rain. The sound of rain in every single game is implemented completely differently, because in some games you want to have just a sound of rain outside. It's a static game. Or sometimes you've got like a large open world game, or where the sound is what surfaces are around me. And so you'll have a solution which is, it's going to check all the different ground surfaces and see if they're underneath the sky while it's raining. And it'll play a rain sound for grass, a rain sound for whatever is being hit at those locations around you as you wander through the world. In racing games, they're more concerned about like, what's your current speed, what's the sound of the wind, the rain hitting your windshield, and other effects. Wind becomes more important in that sort of situation. So in each of those situations, we just build for that specific case, and we don't do a full simulation. We really nail it down and use as little as possible. And that's kind of like, that's what we do for rain, but that's for everything. So art has to do this, programming has to do this. You have to tone down your physics if that's not the key part in the game right now. You got to let that, like, the things that need the resources need to have them.
Yeah, like I would say what makes it balanced is the scope, looking at the game, thinking what it needs, how much time we have, how much like the tech costs, like how much of the pixels or whatever Sean was saying, how much we can do that. So yeah, like I can think of amazing ideas, but at the end of the day, do we have time to do that?
I'd say the limitation breeds creativity. You've got to find a workaround. It's like, you want this to look good, so how do we do that? I think having, what have I got here? you've just got to find these creative solutions. I know in Carmen San Diego, we can only afford one light. So what do? It's like if you've got a city at night, you've got to make it feel alive. You're not going to have all the windows shut. Like apparently everyone's asleep, all the lights are turned off. So you got to have street lamps, you got to have lights coming through from windows and things. How do you achieve that? And in our instance, we used a bunch of these emissive planes to imply lighting because it's needed to serve the visual purpose. And that was just like a fun workaround to a technical limitation.
Okay, so speaking from your own discipline, what is something that is deceptively simple but trickier than it looks? Yep, yeah, I know. There's no stupid questions whilst I'm here. It's okay.
I'd say like it quickly becomes less a problem of how do we create something that hits a visual mark. Maybe it needs to look like Marvel or something like that. And then it becomes, okay, how the hell do we make this run on a device? That is the massive problem that I find every day. It's less of can we make something look good? It is can we make it look good and make it run on a device, which is the $1 million question always.
I actually was meant to talk about rain for this one, not the last one, but okay. I'll actually throw this at more at like a different problem. The large numbers of sounds at the same time are incredibly difficult to do well. And so that's why I was kind of having a go at the problem created by that large dynamic forest is one where it's like, yes, we would need to be able to handle a large amount of sounds in one location. Or a good example, similarly, when I did this in the past, was I made a game which was all about water, and you'd have like, the game ran through a real water simulation, and you think, okay, we'll just play a sound of water hitting something, but you don't actually know that water has like hit one place. It's thousands upon thousands of tiny locations. Like each droplet is a particle, and there's 100,000 of them hitting something. Where do you play sounds? And so you build little custom systems to try and solve these problems around that. And so like if you want to make sounds for complex simulations or like have lots of them at the same time, that's really, really hard. And you've always got to come up with some bespoke simulation because the full, like doing it properly or realistically can't be done in real time on a home computer.
So with concept, you probably think, oh, you're just drawing all day. It's pretty easy. That's challenging in itself. You have to focus and be creative and problem solve all the time, constantly. So sometimes I just like to reach out to other disciplines for ideas, and we all want to make a game and we all have ideas. So really that helps out with me anyway.
Just from a lighting perspective, so it's interesting because a lot of people would be like, oh, you know, the really wet neon-bathed like cyberpunk city, that must be hard to light. No, that's super easy, right? Like from a conceptual standpoint, it's so straightforward because it's just really intense, bright colours. In lighting, the hard part's actually the mundane. Like you get given a task to light an office room or something, and you're like, okay, so it's what, 4 fluoro neonish sort of lights that are just a flat white. How do I make that interesting? And then still trying to do that within like budget constraints and stuff like that is often an unique and interesting challenge where, yeah, how do you take something that is at its core boring and still make it something that is interesting to look at? So, yeah.
I'll actually contradict Tyson there a little bit, and I think lighting is one of those things that people take for granted, and it doesn't matter. Like, and what Chris was saying as well, lighting has gotten a lot easier over the years. You know, we used to only have like 1 or 2 lights, even in like console games and stuff like that. And we had to figure out how to, you know, make sure 2 point lights didn't intersect, you know, their overlap didn't intersect and still create like dynamic, you know, exciting levels from these things. So I think lighting is one of those things that really gets overlooked, and sound's another one of those things that just gets really overlooked. Like if it's being done right, and that's also kind of like from a lot of times level art has this thing where it's like if you're doing everything right, nobody will notice you. you know. So it's it's that idea of like, yeah, that it's hard to produce these things, but it's oftentimes people just don't think about all the effort and work that goes into making something like that.
Really?
Just so people, if you don't understand, with regards to audio is so important, but doesn't get thought of nearly enough. If you can watch a movie that looks really bad with good audio, but you cannot watch a movie that looks amazing with terrible audio. If you get like offset, like that's how important audio is, but it's just not treated like that.
I have very short arms. That was not ideal. Okay, so let's go to like the positives of like when the stars align between tech and art. When tech and art are in sync, what does that look like? Give some examples. What are the signs that it's working?
Well, you get a good game, but just during the development of the game, it's a lot harder to see that. I think like oftentimes you don't know what a game's going to be until you get all the pieces together. You have a bunch of people with a bunch of visions and a bunch of ambitions to create something amazing, but until you put them all together, they're just a bunch of individual pieces. So I think the best way to know if it's going well is, you know, your lines of communication are open. Doesn't mean you always have to agree with the person that you're communicating with, but as long as you can chip away until you have a common vision. Once that common vision is there, then it's much smoother sailing.
I think it's definitely felt more than seen what makes like the collaboration really shine. But an easy observational one is just how dynamic does everything feel? Like if you have trees, again, are they moving? Are they alive? Do they breathe? Do they move in the wind? Do they break off? Like Zelda Breath of the Wild is such a great example of such a massive game that has a lot of dynamic elements where things are destructible. AI moves in a realistic manner. So I think when you start feeling like the world is alive, that's when you really know.
Yeah, I think for me, I know when collaboration's really working because we get to talk about juice, and like interdepartmental juice, which sounds saucy, but it kind of is. So basically, juice is what we can add once the game's actually working. It's like 80% of what takes a game from being, oh, this is functionally okay, to this actually feels good. So it's all the little extra things that make Breath of the Wild feel good. It's like a little extra particle effect, a little extra animation here, or like sometimes it's just like something like squashes and stretches as it moves. It doesn't need to do that, but it makes it a little bit better. And you don't get that by just finishing the requirements. You get that by handing it back and forth between people, getting down and going, okay, this works, but I've got this idea. And it's usually like I'll sit down with a designer, or I might sit down with an artist and say, okay, cool, can we make this thing do this? And the answer is usually no, but, and like once you reach that point, things start getting really, really nice. You notice it really easily when UI has it and UI doesn't. It's got like buttons will bounce a little bit. They'll have like different sounds for like if you've clicked them repeatedly. But yeah, you can do it to everything, and the more of it that's in a game, the better the game is. So like it's the good stuff.
Yeah, so if everything's going well, you feel it, as Chris said. Even in the game, everything feels balanced and good. No one feels like they're overstressed, like they're doing too much. An example I can think of is I wanted a specific look for some assets, so I was painting over them in the textures, and it was just creating a lot of work for me. I was basically becoming a texture artist. And then Chris took that and made a procedural generated texture and used that for everything, and it looked amazing and it did the job. And so we take the work from each other, we balance and make it feel good.
We're all good over there? Great. Okay, so we've talked before about creativity within constraints. Are there any moments where a technical constraint has made the end result better or more interesting? So when have the negatives worked for you? No, yes, no?
So once in a while, I said I was a generalist. So yeah, off and on audio. Once in a while, it's like, can you do vehicles? I'm like, all right. The design constraints on vehicles are absolutely insane, especially when someone's like, oh, can you make it arcadey? And it's like, that's all right. Okay. Like all of a sudden, one part of it needs to feel like an arcade sort of arcade racer, and in one part it actually needs to be a bit more realistic. The suspension needs to feel right and all those things. So what happens there? Okay, you wing it, and you just bounce back and forth with, in this case, design, but like it then becomes bouncing back and forth with art. How is this going to look good? The result is fantastic though, because like, okay, we can't make it truly do both these things because an arcade racer and a realistic racer are kind of diametrically opposed. Like you can't actually combine those elements. But what if we just made it like this one element, like say it's something like, okay, when we have a jump, we don't want it to be a realistic jump. We want to jump 10 times further. So we artificially create this magical burst force that just goes behind the car. And it's like, okay, how do we sell this? Okay, we go over to get some VFX on there, some sound on there. And it's not like someone's hit the boost, but it's like we're selling this moment. And we've completely made this thing up. It's not actually a standard feature of any of those games. It's like we've found one part where we can make this all fit together. That sort of stuff, that's really not something you think of doing unless you're pushed into that situation. And it feels really good. It actually feels new to people when you're forced to do it. It's hard to make something that's a new experience without constraints. And that's an example of that.
It happens so often every day that it's so hard to think of a specific example. But like sometimes if I'm doing a concept for a visual effects and I'm using specific brushes and it will look a certain way in 2D on my screen, but when a visual effects artist tries to do that in a game with their things, it looks completely different. And so usually we talk like, okay, what do we kind of want the vibe? What do we want it to be? And sometimes they'll create something completely different but so much better. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think like one of the things is when you have a technical issue, a technical problem, or not even a technical, but maybe it's a design constraint or something like that, it forces you to refine what you're trying to do and look at it and dissect it and then pull out what is important and allows you to focus on what the problem is you're trying to solve. And sometimes that creates like a really refined direction that ends up being a lot of fun. But like you said, it was just like it happens on an absolutely daily basis. So like we're constantly up against that, and like great things are obviously coming out of it. So yeah. Sorry.
I think a common theme we're seeing with all of this is it's not a limitation, it's a moment for growth. So using that limitation as a challenge to create something better.
All right, since we're running out of time, we're going to keep the next question pretty loaded. So this is going to be directly around tools and software. So what tools and software help you work across disciplines? How do you track tasks, share feedback, or flag blockers? Anything you swear by?
I think that the communication for me is always better in face-to-face, so I kind of go to that as my like first protocol. But obviously that on a big team with a lot of people, it's not something that's feasible. So as your team grows and expands, that you can no longer rely on just going over and talking. You have to like figure out some way of making sure the information disseminated across the whole thing. So in terms, and there's a lot of, I don't know, we want to talk about specific programs or?
So, like, I've worked in a couple of like fully remote indie studios over the years, and like, but one thing that stuck with me is like having a proper text chat that you can break up however you want, be it like Discord, Slack, whatever. Having something like that is essential. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about this in here, and it's like you could just dump what you've done, what's your current task list, you just splat it in there, or like ping someone. It's like, hey, how do I do this? Because like they're busy over there, they'll get back to you when they're free. So having a good communication system is really good, and so is like at a personal level, like having a good note-taking system, like making sure that you're not just like, you know, like using your bug tracker to make sure everything's getting fixed, but it's like, okay, I've got to make sure I go through all these steps to make sure this thing's okay. Just write that down in like whatever kind of note-taking thing works for you personally, and then when you're done, you communicate that with everyone. Like either you might have a meeting, or you might just dump it into the text chat somewhere, like appropriate place so people see it.
So like I said, I think earlier, I'm learning Blender and Substance Painter. So just little things like that, that's trying to bridge the gaps. If I can do something in Substance Painter and show a 3D artist or character artist, it's much better than showing them a Photoshop file that they might not know how to use, and for them to try and recreate it. So just trying to think little things like that just helps get us closer.
Then there's me, who's not allowed on Jira whatsoever. All the unsolicited advice from marketing. All right, so that's a wrap on our official chat, but we're not vanishing. If something has sparked your curiosity and you want to ask us more questions, we'll be hanging around afterwards. Come say hi. Big thank you to our panelists and to everyone for helping us bridge the gap, one shared frustration over shaders at a time. All right.
Just wanted to, does it work? Yeah. Just wanted to say that it's pretty hard because none of them like is a professional speaker. There is no one who is professional like technical manager of stock, etc. So again, a big thank you to all of those who participated. It was specifically hard because we talk about tech and art, but we cannot show what we are doing, and I can promise you that it's amazing. We'll see. We'll show that soon. But right, again, really complex exercise. Thank you for staying with us despite some of the technical issues. It's the first one we're learning. I hope you all learned something. I learned about contrast and lighting. For example, don't put black TV with a big white wall. Thank you, Tyson, for that. And yeah, so this is not finished. This is time for networking. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you will see the theme for the next masterclass. If you want a little clue, it's not about tech or art, but Tyson hinted at it without knowing it last time he talked, or one of the last time he talked. So good luck guessing that. And yeah, let's discuss. And again, thank you everybody, and thank you specifically for all those also who help in the background. Justin, Samantha, Lauren, Liz, Alan, Joshua, Vasilios, Maika, Camilla, and Clint for the cool logo. Thank you everybody. And there is food also. Bye.